What's that story you've never been able to tell? Back when I was in high school, I wanted to approach this girl on bus on my way to school. She was really hot and I knew I'd regret it if I didn't approach her. There was one big problem. There was a middle-aged lady seated next to her, and I couldn't talk to this girl with the lady right next to her. I had to think of a quick way to get rid of the lady. I then woke up from my seat, slowly walked to the row they were seated, and calmly asked the lady, "Excuse me ma'am, could you please let me sit next to my sister?" Turns out the lady was the girl's mom. What did she say in response? They probably just gave him a long WTF look, and then the mom said something like, "This is my daughter." Then there was an awkward silence, and Op turned and slowly walked away while dying inside. When I was 17, I worked at a grocery store with a guy named Brian. Normal guy, mid-20s, lil chub. Didn't really think much of him. One day, he tells me about how he lives in an apartment by himself and that his neighbors are absolutely crazy, like they would yell at him to be quiet, pound against the wall to get him to shut up. Even though he wouldn't be doing anything, he would sneeze, and his neighbors would scream at the top of their lungs from next door. It was that bad. To be honest, I didn't really care much when he was telling me this. I just wanted to go home and not work anymore. Couple days go by, and I noticed that Brian wasn't showing up anymore. Whatever. Didn't think much of that either. A month or two goes by, and he finally shows back up to work. So, being the nice friend I am, I asked him where he's been. He tells me he was actually fired because he was in the hospital. I didn't think that was a valid reason to fire someone, but what do I know? I didn't comment on that. I asked him why he was in the hospital, and he told me it was for personal reasons. I tell him it was good having him back, and carried on with my day. Fast forward a couple days to me talking to another co-worker who was good friends with Brian. He says, "Did you hear what happened to Brian? Yeah, he was in the hospital and was fired or something. Do you know why though?" "No." He said it was personal. So this is what happened a couple months ago. Before Brian disappeared, he was at home by himself when his neighbors surprised start yelling at him through the walls for being too loud. Brian, telling himself "I've had enough," decides to call the police and have them deal with it. The police arrived and started talking to the neighbors for quite some time. Hours go by with the police and neighbors, so he calls the police again to ask what's taking so long. The police respond with, "We left like an hour and a half ago." Turns out that the neighbors were never yelling at him. In fact, they were never there. Brian was schizophrenic and was hearing voices in his head. He had to go to a mental hospital for a month. I started doing one of those 5K running apps. On this app, the trainer is named Erin. She coaches you through each training session. I've never been a runner and now can do a solid 5K. But anyway, Erin told me that I've got to have a mantra, something I can repeat to myself when I want to give up. Her mantra is "You're strong, Erin. Be strong." I could never come up with anything better. So now my mantra is "You're strong, Erin. Be strong." My name isn't even close to Erin, but it doesn't feel right using my own name at this point. I'm surprised how often I want to give up on things and automatically think "You're strong, Erin. Be strong." So I was at a water park with a girl I had a huge crush on, and some of our mutual friends. I'm not a big fan of rides. She had been trying to talk me into going on one all day, and has finally agreed to try out this one really intense looking slide. Basically, you go down the slide while sitting on this big inflatable thing, and it was for two people, so naturally I got paired up with the girl I had a crush on. We both climbed into the inflatable, which had these little handles on it for you to hold onto when you went down. When we went down the slide, it was way faster than I thought it would be. I accidentally let go of one of the handles, tried to grab it again, and ended up grabbing her hand instead by accident. I was really embarrassed, but she put her other hand on top of mine until we reached the bottom. I guess she thought I was scared, which is also kinda embarrassing, but it was a nice moment. She later went on to be my first kiss about 6 months later, and we're still close friends today. Around 42 years ago, my little brother was playing with matches and set the woods on fire, burned about 10 acres. Everyone assumed that it was me smoking in the woods, so he and I just let it be me. I took the blame and the butt whooping because Dad was kinda rough on the butt. whoopings when he was mad, and I didn't want my little brother to have to take it. Being that dad got a little carried away this time, broke my arm. We've just never told anyone the truth. It is not mind-blowing or anything of the sort, which is why I never told it. But when I first started getting sick and couldn't move around the house like usual, my cat would yell at me for 2 minutes until I sat down. He would proceed to purr furiously over my stomach, which was hurting, for about 10 minutes at a time. He would chirp at me if I tried to get up beforehand and keep bumping my leg as I walked past. If I never sat down, little did I know that he was trying to heal my cancer. That was growing into the muscle by that point. He's a little Siamese mix, and he is very vocal, and I appreciate his little squeaks of support. The time my mum needed to go back into the house to get a scarf. Because of this, we were held back and missed a bus by 10 seconds. That bus then crashed into a bridge at very high speed because the bus driver had mental health problems. It is the closest I have ever been to death. I will never complain about my mum going back to get a scarf in my life again. When I was about 14, I found a slingshot in the woods. It was a pretty good slingshot that must have cost a fair bit, that it had a metal frame and a thick rubber sling. One day my friend and I were on top of a hill out in the countryside, and a jogger came running out of the nearby tree line. He was some distance away and below us. Without putting a lot of thought into it, I shot a stone just above his head. The rock went exactly where I wanted it to, but if there was wind, or my aim was off, or 1,000 other factors, I would have seriously messed that jogger up. I muse on that at least once a week. I never see my friend, and we haven't spoken about it since it happened. The night my son was born, my wife lost a lot of blood. In an instant, our delivery room was filled with 25 medical personnel after a rapid response call. My wife was white as a ghost and hardly coherent. I stood beside her holding her hand, while she received emergency blood and plasma and platelets. I was in total shock in the moment, until my wife locked eyes with me and asked, "Am I dying?" I lost it. I'm losing it now typing this. It was the scariest moment of my entire life, and I really have trouble reliving it. 8 months later, wife and baby are happy and healthy. Give birth in hospitals. You never know what can go wrong, and the staff there saved her life that night. About 6 months ago, I was very close to suicide. I actually was about to do it, thinking about killing myself, and at one point, I had agreed to myself I would end it. I got home that night. It was just me, and my cat, as my fiancée was at work. My cat, I think she knew I was sad, and she never sits in people's laps, sat up in my lap and proceeded to flip on her belly and play wrestle with my hand. I broke down for about 3 hours. My fiancée came home knowing none the wiser, but had brought my favorite dish from her work brewery coos. She knew I was feeling down. I've never told her that was the night I decided not to pull the trigger. When I was a college freshman, I tried to boil 3 eggs, then fell asleep. I woke up to a smell. I went to the stove and the water was completely gone from the pot. So like an idiot, I got some water in a big bowl and poured it into the pot. You probably know where this is going. The eggs exploded like dynamite. Scalding hot egg hit my face. It blew me back and knocked me to the floor. Here's the scary part. I felt my face and looked at the egg on my finger, but thought it was burnt skin coming off my face. I almost started crying. How badly burned was I that my facial skin came off to the touch. I walked to the bathroom, shaking, and looked in the mirror. I expected to see a horribly disfigured face, but I saw egg and eggshells. I wiped it with my hand and felt incredible relief. I also felt incredibly stupid. But so what, right? I spent the next hour cleaning egg off the ceiling, the walls, the floor, etc. My face was red for a couple days. In 6th grade one night I was like, I really don't feel like going to school tomorrow, so I looked up how to get a fever. I found a tutorial that said to take a bath at the hottest temperature. Your bathtub will go, and then stay up all night. I decided to try it and I started the water for a steaming hot bath. It stung to get in it, and I somehow survived it for 30 minutes. When I was getting out I felt dizzy and then I fell on the floor and had a seizure. I woke up and saw the blinding ceiling lights of the bathroom, and the first thing I thought was, am I dead? and then I threw up in the toilet next to me and had a migraine for the night, and later found out I got first-degree burns. So long story short, don't do that. Share the story you've never had a chance to tell, and be sure to check out our other videos.